Admiral De Huang stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars drift past the view screen. He had served in the Terran Defense Fleet for 20 years, and most of those years had been peaceful. Humanity had spread across 47 star systems, building colonies, trading with alien species, and exploring the galaxy. War was something from the history books now, or so everyone thought. The communication panel beeped. A young officer turned to face him, her face pale. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress signal from Meridian 7. Day walked over to her station. "What kind of distress?" It's gone, sir. The entire colony. 340,000 people." Her hands shook as she played the recording. The message was short. A terrified voice screamed about ships in orbit, about fire falling from the sky, and then nothing but static. Day felt his stomach turn cold. He had friends on Meridian 7, families, children. "Get me Earth Command, now." Across the galaxy, Dr. Hannah Lim was conducting research on a peaceful science vessel when the news reached her. She had been studying alien plant life, collecting samples, doing the quiet work of understanding the universe. The captain of her ship called her to the bridge and showed her the reports. "An entire colony?" Hannah whispered. "Who would do this?" "They call themselves the Velkoth," the captain said. "Reptilian species from the outer rim. They broadcast a message after the attack." He played it for her. The voice was harsh and cold. "Inferior species will yield territory, or perish." Hannah sat down heavily. She had met many alien species in her career. Some were friendly, others distant. But none had ever been so brutal. "What does the Galactic Council say?" "They're meeting now, on the council station." Ambassador Yuna Choi sat in the Great Chamber, where hundreds of alien species gathered to discuss galactic affairs. Humanity had only been part of the council for 30 years. They were still considered young, inexperienced. Yuna had always been patient with this attitude, but today her patience was wearing thin. She stood and addressed the council. "The Velkoth have destroyed one of our colonies without warning or provocation. 340,000 human beings are dead. We demand immediate action." A crystalline being called a Mothar spoke next. Its voice chimed like bells. "We understand your anger, Ambassador Yuna. But the galaxy is vast. Sometimes territories overlap. Sometimes sacrifices must be made." "Sacrifices?" Yuna's voice rose. "They murdered our people." A creature made of flowing gas, one of the whispers, drifted forward. "We suggest negotiation. Perhaps a territorial exchange. The Velkoth are a powerful species. War would be costly." Yuna looked around the chamber. She saw the same expression on face after face, or what passed for faces among the aliens. They were uncomfortable, yes. Sympathetic, perhaps. But they were not going to help. "You expect us to give them what they want? To reward this attack?" The Mothar chimed again. "You are young in the ways of the galaxy, Ambassador. Survival sometimes requires bending. Pride is a luxury." Yuna sat down, her mind racing. She sent an encrypted message back to Earth. "Council will not intervene. Recommend defensive preparation." On the frontier, Captain Sung Park was already preparing. He commanded the Marine Defense Force on 3 nearby colonies. As soon as he heard about Meridian 7, he began evacuation procedures. If the Velkoth could strike one colony, they could strike more. He was right. 2 weeks later, the Velkoth attacked New Jeju, a mining colony of 180,000 people. But this time, they did something even worse. They broadcast the attack on open channels. They showed their ships hunting civilians through the streets. They showed families trying to hide. They showed children running through fire. Captain Sung received the feed on his command ship. He watched for 30 seconds before he had to turn it off. His hands were shaking with rage. "Get everyone off the remaining colonies," he ordered. "I don't care if we have to stack people in cargo holds. Get them out." His second officer, a young woman named Rena, spoke quietly. "Sir, Earth Command is sending reinforcements. They say we should hold position until they arrive. How long? 6 days. Sung looked at the star map. The Velkoth fleet was 3 days away from the next colony. We don't have 6 days. Prepare the fleet for combat. Sir, we're outnumbered 3-1. I know, but we can buy time. Get the transport ships ready. We'll hold them at Han's Gate. Engineer Tae-1 was working in the secret military research facility on Earth when he received a call from the War Council. They wanted to know about Project Ragnarok. He had hoped they would never ask about it. The weapons from the Century War? He said slowly. Those are locked away. We swore we'd never use them again. Tenyu. The weapons. Tenyu Wei. Things have changed, the voice on the other end said. We need options. Tae closed his eyes. He had designed some of those weapons himself, decades ago when humanity was fighting itself in a brutal civil war. They were terrible things. Quantum missiles that could tear apart entire fleets. Gravity weapons that crushed ships like paper. Gas weapons designed to kill in the most efficient ways possible. If we use these, Tae said carefully, there's no going back. The galaxy will see us differently. The galaxy is already seeing us differently. They're seeing us die. Back on the council station, Yuna received a new message from the council leadership. They had a solution. Humanity would give the Velkoth 12 frontier systems as a buffer zone. In exchange, the attacks would stop. Yuna read the message 3 times. 12 systems. 6 billion human lives. Handed over like bargaining chips. She thought about the people on Meridian 7. She thought about the children of New Jeju, running through burning streets while aliens watched and did nothing. She walked into the council chamber. Every species was watching her, waiting to see if humanity would accept reality. If they would learn their place in the galaxy. Yuna placed a data chip on the central table. This contains the locations of every human military asset, every ship, every base, every weapon. We're sharing this because we believe in transparency. Even now, the Mothar seemed pleased. Then you accept the solution? No. Yuna said quietly. We're sharing this information so you understand what comes next. You offered us a choice between submission and war. We choose war. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens speaking over each other in dozens of languages. The Mothar's chiming grew sharp. You choose extinction. The Velkoth will destroy you. Yuna smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Perhaps. Or perhaps you don't know humanity as well as you think. You told us to learn how the galaxy works. We're fast learners. And she left the chamber. Behind her, the council dissolved into chaos. They had never seen a species voluntarily choose total war over compromise. They didn't understand that humanity had a line that could not be crossed. The Velkoth had crossed it. Now they would learn what that meant. Admiral Day received his new orders an hour later. The message was simple. Make them stop. By any means necessary. He looked at his fleet, AF, at the ships full of young men and women who had signed up to explore the stars, not to fight wars. Then he thought about the faces he had seen in those broadcasts from New Jeju. All ships, he said into the fleet-wide channel. Prepare for combat operations. We're going hunting. Captain Sung Park knew he was going to die. The math was simple. His small fleet of 12 frigates faced 36 Velkoth warships. But if he could hold them at Han's Gate for just 6 hours, 2 million civilians would escape on the transport ships behind him. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the enemy fleet approach. His crew was young, most of them barely out of training. But they had all seen the broadcasts from New Jeju. They knew what they were fighting for. All ships, this is Captain Sung. We hold this position for 6 hours. Not 5 hours and 59 minutes. 6 hours. Our families are counting on us. The Velkoth commander sent a message. Surrender your ships, and we will let you live as slaves. Sung deleted the message without responding. Instead, he opened a channel to his fleet. Remember your training. Fight smart. Not hard. Make every shot count. The battle began badly. The Velkoth ships were bigger and better armed. Within the first hour, Sung lost 3 frigates. But his crews were clever. They used the nebula gases to hide, striking from unexpected angles. They targeted weapon systems instead of trying to destroy the massive enemy ships. It was working, but too slowly. After 3 hours, Sung had lost 7 ships. The Velkoth were angry now, pressing forward with all their strength. Sung made a decision that would be studied in military academies for the next 100 years. All remaining ships, prepare for ramming maneuvers. His second officer stared at him. Sir, that's suicide. I know. But they'll get through in 30 minutes if we don't. The transports need 2 more hours. Sung smiled sadly. Tell the transports we're buying them time. Tell them to name their children after us. 5 frigates, moving at maximum speed, crashed into the Velkoth formation. 12 enemy cruisers exploded in balls of fire. The attack was so unexpected, so desperate, that it threw the entire Velkoth fleet into chaos. Captain Sung's final message was broadcast across the fleet. We held them for 6 hours. Get our people out. Then his ship, the last one, drove straight into the Velkoth flagship. The explosion could be seen from 3 systems away. Behind the debris field, 2 million civilians escaped. They carried with them the story of Captain Sung and his 8,000 Marines. They would make sure humanity never forgot. Admiral Day received the news of Sung's death while preparing his own fleet. He stood in silence for a long moment, then turned to his officers. How many ships do we have ready? 600, sir. The 3rd, 7th, and 9th Armadas. Good. Plot a course for the Velkoth home system. His chief officer looked shocked. Sir, that's deep in their territory. Council regulations prohibit offensive operations without. The Council can go to hell, Day said quietly. Back on Earth, the War Council was meeting in a deep bunker beneath the military headquarters. Fleet Marshal Won Kim sat at the head of the table, looking at the faces around him. Admiral Day was connected by video. Dr. Hana had been called in to advise on Velkoth biology. Engineer Tay sat with a tablet full of weapon specifications. Intelligence Director Rena Bay had files on every Velkoth military installation. The Council expects us to fight defensively, Marshal Juan said. They think we'll slowly retreat, lose a few more systems, then finally accept their peace terms. They're wrong. Engineer Tay pulled up a hologram. It showed weapons that hadn't been seen in 50 years. Project Ragnarok. We developed these during the Century War. Quantum destabilization missiles, gravity well generators, antimatter torpedoes. We locked them away because they were too effective, too terrible. They killed our children, Admiral Day said from the screen. They broadcast it for fun. There's no such thing as too terrible anymore. Dr. Hana spoke up. I've been studying Velkoth biology. Their neural systems are vulnerable to certain energy frequencies. Their skin can't handle specific chemical compounds. We can make our weapons more lethal. Marshal Juan nodded slowly. Then we're agreed. This isn't about defense anymore. This is about making sure no species ever does this again. The plan was called Operation Blackout. 3 human fleets would jump directly to the Velkoth home system. They would disable communications, trap the enemy fleet, and destroy it completely. There would be no warnings, no chances to surrender, just war. Admiral Day's fleet emerged from Quantum Jump right on top of the Velkoth Home Defense Force. The enemy was celebrating their recent victories, their ships scattered and unprepared. The first thing the humans did was activate quantum disruption fields. Every Velkoth communication system went dead. They couldn't call for help, couldn't warn their colonies, couldn't coordinate their defense. The second thing the humans did was activate gravity well generators. The Velkoth ships that tried to run found themselves trapped, unable to enter Quantum Jump. They were stuck in the system with 600 very angry human warships. Then the shooting started. Dr. Hana's research proved its worth immediately. Human weapons had been recalibrated to exploit every weakness in Velkoth biology. Energy beams that caused their nervous systems to fail. Missiles that released gases designed to burn their scaled skin. Every weapon had been optimized for maximum killing efficiency. The Velkoth fleet tried to fight back, but they were outmatched. Human ships moved in perfect coordination. Their tactics refined over a century of war games and training. They targeted engines first, crippling ships before destroying them. They worked in teams, 3 ships focusing fire on one enemy vessel at a time. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 847 Velkoth warships were destroyed. Human losses were 23 frigates. On the Velkoth homeworld, billions watched their supposedly invincible fleet die. They had thought humans were weak, easy prey. Now they watched in horror as their military burned in space above their planet. Admiral Day sent a message on all frequencies. His voice was calm, almost gentle. You wanted to teach us how the galaxy works. Now let us teach you how humanity works. You attacked our civilians. We attack your military. You have 48 hours to evacuate all human territories you have taken. Every hour you delay, we will destroy one of your colony worlds. The message reached the Galactic Council within minutes. The reaction was immediate panic. The Mothar sent desperate messages to Earth, begging humanity to stop. The Whispers offered to mediate. The Hive Collective promised reparations on behalf of the Velkoth. Earth's response was silence. Ambassador Yuna sat in her quarters on the council station, watching the messages flood in. Every species in the galaxy was suddenly very interested in helping humanity. Where had this concern been when Meridian 7 burned? Where were these offers when New Jeju died? She sent a single message back to the council. We gave you a chance to prevent this. You chose convenience over justice. Now you'll learn the cost of that choice. The Velkoth leadership made a fatal mistake. They believed humanity was bluffing. They thought no species would actually destroy entire colony worlds. They fortified their 12 largest colonies and prepared for a siege. They didn't understand who they were fighting. Humans didn't bluff. When they made a threat, they meant it, absolutely. The 48-hour deadline passed. Admiral Day sat in his command chair, watching the timer count down to 0. Behind him, his officers waited in silence. Everyone knew what came next. But no one wanted to say it out loud. The Velkoth have not evacuated human territories, his communication officer reported. They're fortifying their positions. Day closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about the children on New Jeju, running through burning streets. He thought about Captain Sung and his Marines, buying time with their lives. He thought about his duty. Take us to Colony Prime, he ordered. The Terran fleet jumped to the Velkoth's largest colony world. 340 million Velkoth lived there. Cities covered the surface. Farms, schools, families. In the war room on Earth, Dr. Hana stood abruptly. Admiral, there are civilians down there. Children. Families who had nothing to do with the attacks. Admiral Day looked at her through the video screen. His face was tired. Aged years in just weeks. There were children on Meridian 7. There were families on New Jeju. We gave them a choice, Doctor. They made it. But we can't show weakness now. If we back down, every species in the galaxy will think they can attack us, and we'll forgive them. The Velkoth chose this path. Number 5. Engineer Tay activated the weapon systems. Atmospheric igniters, he called them. Devices that turned a planet's own air into flame. He had designed them during the darkest days of the Century War, and he had prayed they would never be used. The weapons deployed from orbit. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then small fires appeared across the planet's surface. The fires spread, feeding on oxygen, growing larger. Within an hour, the entire atmosphere was burning. Colony Prime became an inferno visible from 3 star systems away. The galaxy watched in absolute horror. This wasn't war as they knew it. This was extermination. Species that had existed for millions of years, that had seen countless conflicts, had never witnessed anything like this. The Mothar sent urgent messages. Stop this madness. We will intervene. We will force the Velkoth to surrender. Ambassador Yuna replied with a single sentence. You had your chance to intervene. You chose not to. This is what happens when you let evil go unpunished. The Velkoth leadership finally understood their mistake. They sent desperate messages to Admiral Day, offering complete surrender. They would evacuate all human territories. They would pay reparations. They would do anything. Admiral Day read the message and deleted it. The fleet moved to the next target. Over the next 6 weeks, the Terran fleet systematically destroyed the Velkoth Empire. They worked with terrible efficiency, moving from world to world like a natural disaster. Intelligence Director Rena provided perfect information on every target. Engineer Tay's weapons performed exactly as designed. Dr. Hana's biological research made every attack more effective. In the first week, 4 colony worlds burned. 680 million Velkoth died. In the second week, the humans targeted industrial centers. The Velkoth economy collapsed. Their ability to build ships, manufacture weapons, produce food, all of it disappeared in nuclear fire. In the third week, the Velkoth tried to surrender again. They broadcast their surrender on every channel. They begged for mercy. They offered their remaining territories, their technology, their complete submission. The human fleet ignored them and continued the attack. By the fourth week, Velkoth refugees were fleeing in every direction. Civilian ships, cargo vessels, even old colony transports packed with families trying to escape. But Intelligence Director Rena tracked them all. Every ship, every escape pod, every hidden base. Captain Gina Moon commanded the destroyer Times, Remembrance *. Her ship's motto was painted in Korean on the hull. We do not forget. She hunted refugee fleets across 3 sectors, destroying them one by one. When other officers questioned the orders, she showed them the recordings from New Jeju. They showed no mercy to our children, she said quietly. We show none to theirs. In the 5th week, the Velkoth begged the Galactic Council for intervention. Surely the Council would stop this genocide. Surely someone would help them. The Council tried. They sent a fleet to blockade the Terran ships, to force negotiations. Human destroyers met them at the Council station and took up defensive positions. The message was clear. Try to stop us, and we'll fight you too. The Council fleet backed down. No species wanted to be the next target of human rage. By the 6th week, the Velkoth were no longer an empire. They were a dying species, scattered and hunted. Their homeworld was ash. Their colonies were burning. Their people were being exterminated systematically, without mercy or hesitation. Ambassador Yuna addressed the Galactic Council one final time. The chamber was packed. Every species in the galaxy wanted to hear what humanity had to say. You told us to learn how the galaxy works, she began. You said survival requires sacrifice. You said pride is a luxury. We learned. We survived. The Velkoth made the sacrifice. A Mothar representative interrupted. You're committing genocide. This is against every law, every principle of civilized species. Civilized? Yuna's laugh was bitter. You watched our children burn and called it politics. You told us to surrender our people and called it compromise. You protected our attackers and called it peace. Don't talk to me about civilization, but an entire species. Yes, an entire species. You had your chance to prevent this. When we begged for intervention, you told us to surrender. When we asked for justice, you offered subjugation. You taught us that in this galaxy, might makes right. We are simply better students than you expected. The whispers drifted forward. Please, end this. We understand your anger. But, you understand nothing, Yuna cut them off. You think this is about anger. It's not. It's about ensuring this never happens again. The Velkoth attacked us because they thought we were weak, because you told them we were weak. They thought we would negotiate. They were wrong. She pulled up a hologram showing the Velkoth Empire before the war. Dozens of worlds, billions of people. A thriving civilization. Then she showed the current map. Nothing. Empty space. Quarantined worlds where nothing lived anymore. This is the price of attacking humanity. Not defeat. Not surrender. Extinction. We want every species in this galaxy to see what happened here and understand. If you attack our civilians, if you broadcast their deaths, if you think we'll forgive or forget, you're already dead. You just don't know it yet. End quote. The council chamber fell silent. They had never heard anyone speak like this. The younger species looked terrified. The older ones looked thoughtful, recalculating their assessment of humanity. The Mothar tried one more time. You can't sustain this. Eventually you'll have to stop. Eventually you'll want peace. We want peace now, Yuna said. We've always wanted peace. But we want it on our terms. We will trade with you. Work with you. Explore with you. But attack us? She shook her head. The Velkoth are your example. Learn from it. She left the chamber. Behind her, the council dissolved into frantic discussion. Their comfortable understanding of the galaxy had been shattered. There was a new power now. One that didn't play by the old rules. One that rewrote the rules with fire and blood. General Vex Kor was the last military commander of the Velkoth Empire. He commanded a fleet of 30 ships. All that remained of the once mighty armada. His fleet was filled with refugees, civilians packed into cargo holds and crew quarters, children crying for parents who had died, elders who had watched their civilization burn. He had tried to surrender. Everyone had tried to surrender. The humans didn't care. They kept coming, relentless and unstoppable, destroying everything they found. Vex Kor had never seen anything like it. In all his years of military service, he had never encountered an enemy that refused victory in favor of annihilation. Where can we go? His second officer asked. Every system we try, they find us. Every planet we approach, human ships appear. How do they track us so perfectly? Vex Kor didn't have an answer. He didn't know about Intelligence Director Rena and her network of sensors, satellites, and informants. He didn't know that humanity had mapped every Velkoth movement for months. He just knew that running wasn't working. Take us to the galactic core, he ordered. The stellar chaos there makes scanning difficult. Maybe we can hide in the nebulas. It was a desperate plan. The galactic core was dangerous, full of radiation and unstable stars, but it was their only chance. Behind them, 3 months of distance, Captain Gina Munn followed in the destroyer Times, Remembrance Asterisk. She had been tracking General Vex Kor since the 4th week of the war. Every time he thought he had escaped, she appeared again. She was patient, methodical, and completely focused. Her crew was tired. They had been chasing this one fleet for months, while other human ships had already returned home. But Gina refused to stop. On her desk was a photo of her sister and her sister's family. They had lived on New Jeju. Captain, we could call for reinforcements, her first officer suggested. Let another ship take over. No, Gina said quietly. This is personal. The pursuit continued through the empty spaces between stars. The Velkoth fleet was struggling now. Their ships were breaking down. Food was running short. Medical supplies were gone. People were dying not from human weapons but from disease and starvation. General Vex Kor sent one final message to the human ship following them. Please. We are not military anymore. We are refugees. Civilians. We have children on these ships. Innocent children. Show mercy. Captain Gina read the message. She thought about mercy. She thought about the messages humanity had sent to the Galactic Council, begging for intervention. She thought about the innocents on Meridian 7 and New Jeju. She sent back a recording. It showed the streets of New Jeju burning. It showed Velkoth soldiers hunting human children. It showed the broadcasts the Velkoth had made, celebrating their attacks. This is what you showed us, her message said. This is the mercy you gave our children. Now you receive the same. The Velkoth fleet reached the galactic core and disappeared into a massive nebula. The clouds of gas and dust made sensors useless. General Vex Kor allowed himself a moment of hope. Maybe they had finally escaped. Captain Gina waited. She positioned her ship outside the nebula and settled in. Her crew looked confused. "Captain, they could escape through any of a dozen other exits," her tactical officer said. "They could," Gina agreed. "But they won't. They're low on fuel. Low on supplies. They'll have to leave the nebula eventually to resupply. And when they do, I'll be here." She was right. 3 weeks later, the Velkoth fleet emerged from a different exit point, hoping the human ship had given up. But Remembrance Times was there. Sensors locked on. Weapons ready. The battle was brief. The Velkoth ships were in terrible condition, barely functioning. They tried to fight, but their weapons were weak, their shields failing. One by one, they exploded under human fire. General Vex's Corps' flagship was the last to die. In his final moments, he understood what humanity had done. They hadn't just defeated the Velkoth. They had erased them. Every ship, every colony, every military base, every refugee fleet. Nothing would remain. The Velkoth would become a memory, a warning to the rest of the galaxy. Captain Gina watched the last explosion fade. She felt no satisfaction, no joy. Just a terrible emptiness. She had done what needed to be done, but the cost was visible in every face on her crew. "Send the report to Earth Command," she ordered. "The last Velkoth military force has been eliminated. On Earth." Fleet Marshal Juan received the reports from across the galaxy. Every Velkoth ship accounted for. Every colony world neutralized. Every hiding place found and destroyed. Intelligence Director Rena confirmed what everyone already knew. The Velkoth species was extinct. 18 months after they attacked Meridian 7, not a single member of their race remained alive. The meeting room was quiet. Admiral Day attended by video from his flagship. Dr. Hana sat with her head in her hands. Engineer Tay stared at the wall. Ambassador Yuna's face was unreadable. "It's done," Marshal Juan said finally. "We need to discuss what comes next." "What comes next?" Dr. Hana looked up, her eyes red. "We just killed an entire species, billions of lives. What could possibly come next?" "Peace," Marshal Juan said. "Or at least the chance for it. Every species in the galaxy now knows what happens if they attack us. Many will fear us. Some will hate us, but none will attack our civilians again." Admiral Day spoke from the screen. "The fleet is returning home. What are your orders for the weapons? Project Ragnarok? Lock them away again," Marshal Juan ordered. "But everyone needs to know they exist, that we're willing to use them if necessary." Engineer Tay finally spoke. "The galaxy will never see us the same way. We were explorers, traders, scientists. Now we're the species that committed genocide. We're the species that protected our own," Yuna corrected. "At any cost. Let the galaxy judge us however they want. Our people are safe. That's what matters." But safe came with a price. The returning fleet crews were changed. They had done things they never imagined possible. Destroyed worlds, hunted refugees, killed billions. Victory felt hollow. Dr. Hana started a support program for the veterans. Many couldn't sleep. Many had nightmares. They had followed orders, done their duty, but the weight of what they had done was crushing. She worked tirelessly, trying to help them process the trauma. Captain Gina returned home to a hero's welcome. The public celebrated her as the officer who had tracked down the last Velkoth. But she felt like a fraud. She had hunted refugees for 3 months, killed civilians fleeing for their lives. The photo of her sister's family sat on her desk, but she couldn't look at it anymore. Engineer Tay tried to return to civilian work. He designed terraforming equipment, hoping to build something instead of destroying. But every night he dreamed of Colony Prime burning, the atmosphere turning to fire. His designs had worked perfectly. That was the problem. Ambassador Yuna remained at the Galactic Council, but everything was different now. When she entered the chamber, conversations stopped. Other species moved aside. Her seat had been relocated to the front of the chamber, among the most powerful civilizations. No one had asked humanity if they wanted the move. No one had voted. The seat had simply appeared one day, and no species dared question it. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity was not weak, not forgiving, not merciful when pushed too far. They were a species that would burn down empires to protect their own. The old rules of galactic politics, negotiate, compromise, sacrifice, no longer applied to them. Humanity had set their own rules now. And those rules were written in the ashes of the Velkoth Empire. 100 years had passed since the Velkoth War. The galaxy was a different place now, shaped by the events that humanity had set in motion. The burned worlds of the former Velkoth Empire remained quarantined, monuments to what happened when someone pushed humanity too far. A young alien named Kessa arrived at Earth for her first year at the Terran Diplomatic Academy. She was from a species called the Lyran, peaceful traders who had joined the Galactic Council long after the war. She knew the stories, of course. Everyone did. But stories and reality were different things. Her instructor was Professor Wu Han, a human in his 70s who had served in the Terran Defense Fleet during the war. He had never seen combat, but he had friends who did. Friends who never quite came back, even when their bodies returned home. On the first day of class, Kessa raised her hand. "Professor, I need to ask. Did humanity regret what they did to the Velkoth?" Wu considered the question carefully. He had been asked it many times over the years, and his answer had evolved. "We regret that it was necessary. We regret that the galaxy forced us to become what we became. We regret every life lost. On both sides. But do you regret the decision itself?" Kessa pressed. "No," Wu said quietly. "Because in the century since, not a single human colony has been attacked without provocation. Not one. The Velkoth were the last species that made humanity truly angry. The rest of the galaxy learned in time." Kessa looked around at her classmates. Aliens from dozens of species, all studying on Earth, learning about human culture and diplomacy. The other species, they fear you. Yes, they do. But they also respect us. They trade with us. They work with us. Because while they fear our anger, they trust our restraint. We proved we wanted peace, but we also proved we would not accept being victims. In the rebuilt city of Seoul, a massive memorial stood in the central plaza. 520,000 names were carved into black stone, one for each person killed on Meridian 7 and New Jeju. Surrounding the memorial were 12 empty pedestals, representing the 12 systems the Galactic Council had wanted humanity to surrender. Tourists from across the galaxy visited the memorial every day. Most came to understand humanity better. Some came to pay respects. A few came to feel grateful that their own species had never tested humanity's limits. On the central pillar, words were carved in Korean and Galactic Standard. "Here we remember those we protected, and remember that we fought for those we lost. Never test us again." Dr. Hana, now elderly and retired, visited the memorial every year on the anniversary of the Meridian 7 attack. She had spent the last century trying to balance the scales, working on xenobiology research that helped dozens of species. She had saved millions of lives with her medical discoveries, but she still remembered Colony Prime burning, still saw it in her dreams. She had provided the research that made human weapons more lethal, more efficient, more terrible. Her work had helped kill billions. "Do you think they forgive us?" a young researcher asked her once, gesturing to the names on the wall. "I don't know," Hana admitted, "but I hope they understand why we did it. I hope they know we never wanted any of this." The Galactic Council had changed dramatically after the war. Humanity now sat at the primary table, their voice carrying weight equal to the oldest civilizations. But more importantly, the Council's policies had shifted. Unprovoked attacks on civilian populations were now met with immediate, coordinated response. The younger species were protected, not sacrificed. Ambassador Yuna had retired 20 years ago. But her legacy shaped galactic politics. The Yuna Doctrine, as it became known, stated that any species attacking civilians would face unified council action. No more negotiations with aggressors, no more rewarding violence with territorial gains. Interestingly, the Mothar had become humanity's closest allies. After the war, they had spent decades studying what went wrong. They realized that their dismissal of humanity's concerns had enabled the tragedy. Now they advocated strongly for protecting younger species, often citing the Velkoth War as an example of what happens when the powerful ignore pleas for help. Fleet Marshal Huan had died 15 years ago. But his final speech to the graduating class at the Naval Academy was still played every year. In it, he addressed the question everyone still asked: was it worth it? We destroyed an entire species, he had said. We crossed lines that should never be crossed. We did things that haunt us still. Was it worth it? Ask the 6 billion humans living in those 12 systems the Council wanted us to surrender. Ask the children being born today who will never know the fear their ancestors felt. Ask the dozens of species that no longer face casual extinction because the galaxy learned that some actions have absolute consequences. He had paused, his old eyes scanning the young faces before him. We paid a terrible price to teach that lesson. But yes, it was worth it. Because we ensured that lesson only had to be taught once. Engineer Tay had spent his final decades working on restoration projects. His terraforming technology had brought life back to 3 of the Velkoth worlds. Not Velkoth life that was gone forever, but new ecosystems, new possibilities. He called it penance. Others called it hope. Before he died, he left behind detailed instructions for dismantling every weapon system from Project Ragnarok. But he also left instructions for rebuilding them, if necessary. May we never need them again, his note said. But may we never forget that we can. Captain Gina, retired now and running a small restaurant on Earth, still kept the photo of her sister's family on her wall. She had made peace with what she did, though she never called it right. I did what I had to do, she told students who sometimes visited. I protected my people by hunting those who hurt them. Whether that makes me a hero or a monster, I'll let history decide. Albanzi. The most interesting development came from an unexpected source. Several species that had been expanding aggressively before the war had suddenly become very diplomatic. The Hive Collective, which had been pressing territorial claims against weaker neighbors, withdrew and opened trade negotiations instead. The Mothar reported that several conflicts had ended when one side mentioned, "We don't want to become another Velkoth situation." Humanity had become the galaxy's deterrent. Not through active policing or constant threats, but simply through example. Every species knew the story. Every military academy studied the battles. Every diplomat understood the implications. Attack humanity's civilians, and you wouldn't just face military defeat, you would face extinction, not because humans were cruel, but because they had proven they would pay any moral price to protect their own. Professor Wu stood in his classroom, looking at the young faces from dozens of worlds. The Velkoth War changed everything, he told them. Before, the galaxy operated on the assumption that survival required compromise, that the weak must yield to the strong, that some populations were acceptable losses in the name of peace. He pulled up a hologram showing the galaxy before and after the war. Humanity rejected that assumption. We said our people are not negotiable. Not under any circumstances. The Galactic Council thought we were being naive, emotional. They thought we would learn to accept reality. Instead, you changed reality, Kessa said quietly. Yes, at a terrible cost. But yes. Wu looked at the memorial visible through the classroom window. We showed the galaxy that there are some lines that cannot be crossed. Some actions that cannot be forgiven. Some species that will burn down empires rather than accept injustice. And now? Another student asked. Now we work to make sure it never happens again. We trade. We explore. We build. We help younger species navigate the galaxy safely. We share our technology and our knowledge. Wu smiled sadly. We try to be the species we wanted to be, before the Velkoth forced us to become something else. As the class ended, Kessa approached Wu's desk. Professor, can I ask one more question? Of course. If it happened again, if another species attacked human civilians the way the Velkoth did, would humanity do the same thing? Wu was quiet for a long moment. I hope we never have to answer that question. I truly do. But if you're asking whether we've changed, whether we've learned to accept victimhood. He shook his head. The weapons are locked away, but the will to use them never faded. We're peaceful now because others let us be peaceful. The moment someone mistakes our kindness for weakness, the moment someone thinks a century has made us soft. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Kessa understood. The whole galaxy understood. Humanity had shown them once what happened when you made them angry. The Velkoth had learned too late that there was no coming back from that anger. No negotiation. No mercy. No survival. The galaxy remembered, and in remembering, found peace, because sometimes, the best way to prevent war is to show everyone exactly what war with you would mean. To demonstrate, once and absolutely, that attacking you isn't just dangerous or costly. It's suicidal. The Velkoth had provided that demonstration. Their empire was dust. Their species was extinct. Their name was a warning, whispered across 1,000 worlds. And humanity? Humanity continued building, trading, exploring, and protecting. Always protecting. Because while they hoped it would never be necessary again, they were ready. The galaxy's kindest neighbors were also its most terrifying enemies. The last species that made humanity angry was gone. The galaxy had made sure there would never be another.